Hello and welcome to episode 101. Where do you live?
I live in Wavertree.
You have a house?
I have a house.
Oh, no, rent.
Rent.
What do you do for a living?
I do lots of things.
Where's your office?
I don't have an office.
How come?
I don't need one.
Where's your wife?
I don't have one of those either.
How come?
It's a long story.
You have kids?
No,
How come?
it's an even longer story.
Who's your favourite Liverpool player?
Jonathan Barnes.
Why?
Because he's the reason I'm a Liverpool fan.
What's the best goal you ever saw?
A left-footed volley from the edge of the area, at the edge of his own box by Mo Stewart.
Are Liverpool going to win the league?
You're damn right we are.
Get in is right. Okay, we'll start the show. We just thought we'd be daft at the start of the show because loads of people have said the dynamic's going to be different now that you don't do it with Kopi, and you won't have a laugh and you won't do this and you won't do that and blah, 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 blah. Well, here we are, and straight away we're into nonsense. So we just thought we'd do that. Hopefully you get the reference. If not, don't worry. We'll crack on. We'll
Watch
talk
more
about the
films
Reds.
if you don't get the reference.
Yeah, and it's a great film too. But the Reds then, 6 points clear, game in hand, unbeaten in the Champions League, semi-final of the League Cup. This show is brought to you courtesy of a hangover, which is thanks to Liverpool fans from Hong Kong and Dubai. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for the pints. So, Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2. That wasn't the script, was it?
Well, it wasn't the one I read, no. It's weird because Liverpool have been better team than Man United for years now, and yet every time we go into the game, you're never quite sure. It's like, well, we should batter them, but you never know. And like, there were lots of people who were convinced, and I think the weirdest thing about it was, for me, was that there were loads of people who had nothing to do with either team who were convinced that Liverpool were going to batter them. That was the thing. Like, I think Chris Sutton said that the game was going to be 5-0, and I was just like, oh, come on, mate. Really? But the reality is United managed to pull a performance out of their arse that they haven't been capable of for like months, maybe even all season. And we kind of let them do it. And you can talk about tactics, you can talk about personnel, you can talk about all those other things. The one thing that always matters in a game with rivals is effort, energy, application.
Yeah.
They had it, we were lacking. And that is why the game ended as it did, in my opinion.
Yeah. Lots of people saying welcome to Mo, so is right for that. And is right also to Robert Strefford, who's thrown in £9.99 on the Super Chat. He says, Happy New Year, fellas, and welcome to Mo for his first full-time show. Have a couple of beers on me.
I should probably say at this point as well, it is kind of weird for me because I've been a fan of the show, much like all of you have, and I love Kopi. And so it wasn't an ideal situation when it arose, but I'm hoping that you will take me into your bosom, as it were. As I say, I'm a fan of the show, so I've watched loads of it, so I know what makes it good. I know I'm not him. No, I don't have any team of dragons. Although, we are going to get onto the idea of buying mad shit online, because I do have some stories on that to come in the future. But yeah, thank you to all of you for all the kind words you said. And thank you to Kopi for the kind words he said last week. Little bit disappointed he didn't sing my name, but maybe we'll get that in the future.
Aku wants to know, Mo, if you live in Wavo, why has he never seen you in the Asda?
Because I've normally got my hood up and headphones on, and I'm normally going in there at a really mad time. So if you're in there on a Sunday morning, then maybe you will see. In fact, no, don't go looking around the Asda for me. Maybe not. Like I might be in the Aldi. You don't know.
Okay. He also says you're a better DJ. Doesn't say better than what. But maybe it's meant to be belter.
Well, I hope so.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned there, mate, I didn't like at all. I didn't like all this 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 chat. I just thought, no, I'm not having that. And I was even like, I did a few little bits of media and things like that, and I was getting like, it's going to be 6-0, isn't it? It's going to be 7-0, isn't it? And I'm like, no. And I said, you know what? I'll take 1-0.
Yeah.
And I was like, because we know that these games can be weird. We've done it the other way around. We've been the crap team that spoiled their party. quality. Famously, I always remember '92 when we sang to them. You lost the league on Merseyside. Yeah. Brilliant. And so, we love doing that. And they've clearly used that as a motivation. I mean, the manager's team talk's an easy one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks we're going to get beat. Everyone thinks you're going to get done for 5, 6 and 7. Let's show them different. And this will really boost the fans. The fans will love it if you can get something at Anfield. All of those things. And they punched up and we punched down. Yeah. And as you say, the bare minimum is always effort, really. And we've got to obviously come on and talk about Trent, because everyone's talking about Trent, and it's understandable why they talk about Trent. And he just the first goal for them, he just does not look good on it, does he? Let's be honest. First of all, there's the pass that he tries, and then it's like he's just completely switched off. And someone's done that thing where they've focused just on him and put it on Twitter, and it looks bad, doesn't it? It looks really bad.
It does, and it's like I wrote a piece about it yesterday, and I said that he made a hat-trick of mistakes, because there's the clearance, there's the kind of not really pressing Fernandes and kind of weird dangling a leg, and then there's letting Martinez run off the back of him. And it's a weird situation with him, because it's the absolute worst possible time he could have picked to throw in a stinker like that, on top of everything that's happened, and it being at home against United. So on a human level, I kind of feel for him, because he must be absolutely going through it right now. The problem he's got is, as we were saying, effort is non-negotiable, and he seems to be one of those fellas who, when he's having a bad game, some people, when they're having a bad game, you can tell they'll just start running harder. Like Henderson was a classic example of this. When he was having a bad one, you could tell, because he would just pin his ears back and just start running around like a madman. He might even throw a tackle into. I mean, Milner was great at that. He would just boot someone up in the air and it would just get him going again. Trent's not that kind of fella. When he's having a bad game, it's almost like you can feel him or watch him thinking about the headlines while he's in the game, and it just kind of disconnected from what he was supposed to be doing. And again, that's probably the worst kind of reaction you can have in that, so it kind of compounded things. So he didn't help himself, and I didn't write this in the piece, and I probably should have done, he was by far not the only person who wasn't at their best that game. I think
Robbo.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it wasn't great. The second goal, there's 2 times where Diallo gets away from him. The first one, where thankfully Diallo heads it away from goal in the first half.
Yeah, that was mad.
It was mad. And then the one he scores, and it's 3 years ago, Robbo, he's getting both of those.
Yeah,
and it's a shame, because he's been such a great player for so long. You don't really want to admit that maybe the slide has begun, but there's no getting away from it. The way he's been playing this season, he's had 1 or 2 games where it's been maybe he's back to that level, but that's just kind of the exception that proves the rule.
Played well against Girona, didn't he?
Yeah, and I thought he was great against City, but again, it's you need to be able to be that consistent week in, week out, and I just felt like it was the worst possible time for us to throw in a game like that. Not only because they were on a high, they had a free hit, essentially. They'd lost 4 in a row. So if they lost that one to the team top of the table, it's not really as bad as losing at home to Bournemouth, for example. If they lost 1 or 2-0, it's not as bad as losing 7-0 2 years ago. So whatever result they got, they can rationalise it. So they were kind of free from that. And also, think about the toxicity that had been at their ground when Xerxes got hooked after half an hour and all that stuff. Being away from most of them, having only 2,500 Mancs to deal with rather than 80,000, probably a lot easier for them. So they came into it feeling a little bit looser. The whole midfield was different. They binned off the old geezers, Eriksen and Casemiro, got some young lads in there. So they were feeling good about themselves. And then we just kind of let them get at it. I watched the game back this morning, and you can see inside the first minute, our plan broke down. So clearly we had a plan when we were pressing them. You could see who was going to who. So Gakpo was on Mazraoui, then Diaz was on De Ligt, then Jones was coming up from midfield onto Maguire, and then Salah was on Martinez, and then that was it. And then after that, there's just a massive gap, and then you got McAllister, Gravenberch, and Trent there, and it's just like, well, if these are all pressing, the point is that when they go, everyone goes, so we close up all the spaces. But they didn't, and then they let them get out. And then they were just getting out every game.
It was too easy, wasn't it?
Too easy.
Like, there's players carrying the ball like 20 yards or more, and you're like, is anyone going to put a challenge in that?
And think about what happened in the first game at Old Trafford in September. What was so good about that game is that we were all over them. We were nipping the ball. How many times did we steal the ball off them in their half and then go marauding towards goal? Like, that was the main image I have in my head when I think of that game. And yet we didn't see a bit of it. And I just think that we made their life too easy throughout the whole game. And yet we still should have fucking won.
I know. That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, obviously we all remember the Maguire moment, like, but literally seconds before Van Dijk as a free header.
Yeah.
So we could have won it. They could have won it, but we just got to move on. It feels like a defeat, though, doesn't it? And I think it was weird in the ground as well. A few people are mentioning in the comments about the atmosphere. I just kind of think the mindset collectively, fans and players, just wasn't right.
No.
There was probably a little bit too much of, we're definitely going to win, it's going to be easy. We can mention the conditions, but the conditions are the same for both sides.
Exactly.
But some of the passes that got pinged and there's the misjudgments around them. I don't know what was it. It was like the Forest game, wasn't it?
It's weird because we've been at games before where Liverpool have started poorly and the crowd's been a little bit like, oh, come on, lads, let's not have one of those games. But then they will collectively decide, okay, well, we're going to spur you on because we know that you can turn it around. Whereas when it's this game, it was a bit like, oh God, don't you dare put in a performance against these lot like this. So it was more kind of like anger and indignation rather than, come on lads, you're better than this, let's go. And then when you throw in the kind of Trent element to it, I think that made it worse because there were a lot of people who were already turning up thinking, well, if he doesn't put in a 10 out of 10 here, I'm going to be on his back.
Yeah.
And obviously he did the opposite of that, and I feel like that element tended to make it worse. But it's weird because I should probably mention that I wasn't in the crowd. I was kind of above the crowd because I was on my press ticket, and I was watching it in the gantry, the radio gantry with everyone.
All right, you're up there.
Yeah. And so I couldn't really hear a lot of the toxicity. I've spoken to loads of people about it since who were like right in amongst it and said it was awful at times, but. I mean, it's a slightly funny aside. I was actually watching the game sitting next to Aldo, and if you've never done that, I recommend it to everyone. It's an absolute wild ride. Like, first of all, like most of us come in the gantry from the side, and you kind of walk past everyone, and oh, excuse me. He comes flying over the barrier like he's James Bond or like the milk tray fella or something like that. And then when you watch, so everyone's got that one auntie who is just like, oh my God. And like you see something on the TV, she's just like overreacting to everything. Yeah. That was him. It was like, I forgot he was actually meant to be on the radio because like the amount of times he just grabbed me, went, oh my God, when something went wrong. I was just like, bloody hell, mate, calm down. But yeah, it added a surreal layer to the whole proceedings.
Yeah, him and Steve Hoddesall were great when they did the commentary together on Radio City. Me and my mates used to absolutely buzz off Aldo. It was funny, just the noises out of it.
Oh yeah, he's still doing all that.
Yeah, boss. On the Trent toxicity, because that's what it is. I'm going to be frank about this. People need to get a fucking grip because, frankly, some of the stuff that went on was wild. So far, off the mark. We go to that ground to support the team.
Yes. He
is wearing a red shirt. And whether he goes to Madrid or he doesn't go to Madrid, you fucking support him while he's still a Liverpool player. And, you had people, the first pass that he misplaced on his back, everything he did, get him off, you can go, all the I had supporters telling me who were in the ground, that they even heard people being racist. I mean, fuck me.
Yeah.
Really? And like, you know, I just thought, we've got some horrendous people supporting us here. It comes to something when the managers, you know, turning round and remonstrating with the crowd because of stuff that's being said to a Liverpool player in a Liverpool v Manchester United game, when we are going for the title, when we are 6 points clear, when we have won every game in the champ, etc., etc. And just on Trent as well. Obviously, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's giving an opinion on it and all the rest of it. Mine is, I got, you know, Dan Austin rang me today, and he's written a piece for the BBC about all of this. And I said to him, I don't get it. Like, if he wants to go, go.
Yeah.
And if we get nothing for him, that bit's disappointing, and I get that, and that bugs me a little bit, to be honest. I would have liked it, in an ideal world, if he's going to go, we get money for him, because we know what a game changer that is for Liverpool, because Liverpool have to make every penny work. We can't just throw it around like City do. There are richer clubs in Europe than us, all the rest of it. So that bit is disappointing. But if he's given 20 years to a club, he is more than within his rights to say, I want to go somewhere else. Yeah. And look, I get it. I get like that people just put the passion first, and like it goes over the line and they go, well, yeah, but Liverpool are great. We're top of the Champions League. We're top of the Premier League. We're flying. Why would you want to get off? Well, you don't know what his life's like, though. No. You're not walking in his shoes. And I always think about Gerrard when he finally left Liverpool, and he talked about like it being like a goldfish bowl living here. And he loved the fact that when he went out to LA or whatever, you know, he could just walk around and no one was asked, basically.
I always think it's so weird when people use Gerrard as the example of like, well,
stop defending Trent. No, I won't, mate. Okay? Just in the comments there.
So when people use the example of Steven Gerrard as to say, well, he was a club legend, he stayed, you know, it's like honestly, if you're telling me that there's only Steven Gerrard and Trent in a room, and Trent goes to him, so what do you think? Do you think I should stay? Do you think I'd leave? Did you regret not leaving? Are we 100% sure that he's going to say stay? Because I'm not. Because
he nearly went to Chelsea.
He nearly went to Chelsea twice. Like, and not only when we say he nearly went, he'd made his mind up to go, and then went back on it. Like, he Zubamendi'd it, if you want to call it that. So the idea that Gerrard is this kind of unimpeachable example of virtue and Liverpool through and through. It's like, well, he had doubts at the same time. And yes, the Liverpool team that he was in was probably not going to win the league anytime soon, even though it did win the Champions League, by the way, just in case you've forgotten. I think that every player has the right to dictate how they feel about their own career. And look, it's an emotional thing, right? We understand it's an emotional thing. Liverpool fans don't see anyone better in the world than Liverpool Football Club. But players are different. It's not just your club, it's your career. Yeah. Like,
exactly.
It's a whole different kettle of fish. So for him, it's not just about, well,
he's a sportsman.
Yeah, it's not just about, oh, I think Real Madrid's a better team, so I'm going to go and play for them. It's like, well, I want to see things. I want to experience the world. I want to be able to see what this feels like doing it in another country. I want to see what this feels like as someone who isn't part of the furniture, but as someone who's come in. And all of the kind of the Ballon d'Or arguments and all that kind of stuff, I park that because, frankly, I don't think he's got a better chance of winning the Ballon d'Or playing for Real Madrid, because there's 3 other guys ahead of him in that queue who are already playing that team. But the idea of him wanting to go and experience different things, I get that. I'm like you in terms of the money. Like, I think that there is an element to say that Liverpool have helped turn him into the asset that he is, and it would be nice if we were remunerated for that. But we have to think about it the other way around. Fulham still say the same about Harvey Elliott. Like, they don't feel like they got to say that they got the value for us for him. So it works always.
Or QPR with Sterling,
exactly,
or whatever it might be. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, football makes a hypocrite of everyone at some point. And we're happy when we go and nick players from elsewhere. We're happy if a player comes to us on a free. We wanted the lad to come, Zubamendi. We wanted him to come, and he's a homegrown player and all that. And then we slagged him off when he didn't come, and blah. And all of this. I just think it's mad. Like, if he wants to go, sound. And look, he's been like, he's probably made his mind up. I think he is going. And so that's been the case. The only thing that's changed is they put a bid in.
Yeah.
Or not even a bid, they inquired and got told no. And that's the only thing that's changed since the games the other week. He's put in plenty of decent performances this season. So the idea that, you know, we immediately get on his back over a misplaced pass in a game is mad, and it's counterproductive. What are we doing?
It is. And like the idea that, I think Carragher's been one of the main people who said this, the idea that he's had some influence in Real Madrid putting the bid in hasn't helped. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about how it really works at that level and what really goes on to know it. But it feels to me like if he has, then that's absolutely counterproductive. Because for starters, I don't think he does want to leave now. Like, no. Why would you want to leave with 1.5 leagues instead of with 2 leagues? Particularly as the one he got was under COVID, so they didn't get to do the parade. Like, how many times did we hear about the players saying they didn't get to do a bloody parade? He absolutely wants to stay here and win this league. So the idea that he would be happy to go in January, I don't think is true. It wouldn't surprise me if he'd made his decision to say, okay, in the summer, I want to leave. And the Real Madrid have taken that and said, okay, well, let's see if he'll go now. And then thrown a bid in, rather than said, we are going to bid, are you okay? Or the idea that he's told them to bid for him now. Because he doesn't want any of this. Like, who would want all of this on your head right now?
I know.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, there are parts of it where, and again, I understand some of the reaction because we're emotional people.
Yeah.
There's a little bit,
and all the rest of it.
There's a little bit of a like, lover scorned, you don't dump me, I'll dump you element to some of this, which I think is a little bit sad. But in mitigation, I do have to acknowledge the fact that part of the reason why people have felt comfortable with being so abusive to him is what I was saying before about how he reacts to having a bad game. What we were saying before about application. Like, it doesn't look good when he's not it looks like he's not putting all the effort in that he could. And
no, like I said, he was terrible on that first goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He had a shocking game. You know what I mean? He should have been hooked earlier for me. And I do wonder whether, was he not hooked because the manager's looking at it thinking, if I hook him, A, it'll, you know, he won't take it well. B, it's going to create a massive story, like, you know, like Madrid put an inquiry in and then he has a stinker and he's taken off at half time against Man United in a huge game.
I think that's true. And
as soon as he got booked, it was like, you're off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And also, you notice the way that he did it. It was a double substitution, and it was with Gakpo who'd scored. So everyone applauded Gakpo off, and then he just kind of was already on that side. He just kind of walked off. And so it wasn't like there was a moment where everyone was focused on him as he was coming off. I think that wasn't by accident either. But like, so you can say that he should be putting more effort in. And this is what I say, even when he doesn't help himself, the way that he reacts to that. But the idea that people have been floating out that saying that means that he doesn't care, or that means that he's down tools. Like, let's cast our mind back 3 years ago when the last time everyone was getting on his back because he wasn't playing well. We were all saying the same things about him. Oh, he's not tracking back. Oh, he looks like he's not interested. That's just... And there was no contract then. There was no talk of Real Madrid then. That is just who he is as a person and how he reacts in this situation. And yes, it leaves him open to these kind of accusations, but no, it doesn't on its own mean he doesn't care. Like, I don't think that someone who could be at the club for 20 years can just not care.
No,
all of a sudden.
Not either.
And it's even before you consider the rest of his teammates. And the fact that he's the vice captain.
I also think as well that Slot's shown that he gives no fucks about things. Do you know what I mean? So I think if there was an attitude problem, if there was an application problem, if he did think his head's turned and his heart's not in or whatever, he wouldn't be on the side.
Absolutely.
I don't think Slot would think twice about that. Like there's a quote I've got somewhere later on in the agenda about Mo talking about Slot, saying he just takes you on.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't. He's not scared of conflict at all. So I think he'd be all over him. And that first goal, as an example, he will be all over him for that.
Yeah.
You know, he will show him that clip and he'll say, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
Yeah, I probably as we speak, he's probably recovering from getting his head chewed out today.
Absolutely.
Because they wouldn't have left him much more longer. Because there's another game in 2 days.
Yeah.
And this is another thing as well, by the way. Some people said that, now Conor Bradley's back, then I'll be playing Conor Bradley. But like, Conor Bradley will get a lot of starts between now and the end of the season. But for the very next game, I'm playing Trent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm saying go again, lads.
And look, Bradley's great. Like, I really like the lad and all the rest of it. But he is a sort of like a blood up type player. And I thought he showed his naivety shooting from where he shot from. Do you know what I mean? Were you into the shot?
See, yeah, like initially I thought, yeah, I agree with you. And then I looked at it again and Onana's kind of jumped towards Salah. He's anticipated that he's going to cross it. So he's kind of given him a bit of space.
Okay.
And it's a bit like, if it goes in, it look like you can assume him saying, in my mind, the worst case scenario here is we get a corner and he flicks it off. But he gave him a bit of space. Like, arguably, like if you're going to shoot, then he probably should have scored. Like, but also, there's a part of me, and this is, as much as I absolutely wanted Liverpool to win that game, and I'll be happy if they win that game, all of this would be much worse if Bradley was the match winner. But on top of everything else.
Yeah, absolutely, Kurt has thrown in £10 and says, "Warm welcome to Mo. I think your namesake is more important to us than Trent. Do you think he will sign all the best fellas?" I mean, obviously, he's been chatting away again. He's been doing interviews. He's been saying it's me last year.
Putting out cryptic photos. Did you see the one?
Yeah, with the three of them on, yeah. So he gets no shit for that, does he?
No.
At all. And I keep saying, I don't know what he's doing it for. Like, we know you haven't agreed a contract, so you don't have to keep. Like, he's asked the question, he can just say, "I don't want to talk about it."
Well,
and then they move on, because that's what Arna does when he deals with the question.
I know why he's doing it though. It's because he wants all of us to get at them and say, "What are you doing?" He wants the conversation to be, "I can't believe they've not done this. I cannot believe they're possibly thinking about letting the best player in the Premier League walk away for nothing at the end of the season." So clearly, both sides, but at this point, know what the other one wants. Like, we've gotten beyond the point where he said that they've not offered him anything. We know that they have offered him something now. We're in that period. So this is his tactic of saying, "Look, I'm going to get the world of Liverpool to put all the pressure on you to do what I want to do." His problem is that the people who he's got to convince, namely Michael Edwards, namely John Henry, they don't give two shits about any of that stuff. Like, that's not gonna influence their thinking at all. So I think, in a weird twist, I do think the salary is going to end up signing, but I think it might end up being much later than all of us are comfortable with. And I also think the part of the reason Virgil hasn't signed yet is because Mo is the one who's going to set the table here. Like, I think most people in the club are thinking in their mind, well, if all three of them sign, at the end of the day, Mo's still going to be the highest earner. Like, Trent might get close to him, Virgil might get close to him, but Mo is still where the line is drawn. And so because of that, the others are like, well, let's see where that line is. And that's when we'll start doing it. So once his is done, then I wouldn't be surprised if Virgil's isn't that soon afterwards. But I still think that if you're the club, you want to do it the other way around.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it. According to Gary Neville, he said Mo wants a 3-year deal at £400,000 a year. And he said he probably deserves that, because to replace him, you're going to have to pay 60 million or 70 million plus the wages, maybe 120 million all in. Salah's 33 in June. So a 3-year contract till he's 36. Now, look, he is in super shape and all the rest of it, but we know how FSG operates. We know how Edwards operates. We know everything is data-driven, stat-driven, and all the rest of it. And while I can throw in, well, look how well Lewandowski is performing or whatever, they will say, yeah, sound, but there's also all these players here who have dropped off at that age.
But this is where you can use his own confidence against him. Because you can say, all right, you're that confident that you're still going to be making those numbers when you're 35, 36. Well, how about we do it that way? If you are, then you get the money you want. If you aren't, you don't. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, if I was Michael Edwards, that's what I'd be going to him with and say, look, we need to protect ourselves here. We need to protect the future of this football club. If you are proving us wrong, then everybody's happy because you're still producing for Liverpool Football Club and we will happily give you that money. But what we aren't going to do is give you that money if you're wrong. So I think that if that's the sticking point, then there's going to have to be a compromise on Mo's part because I feel like the club are going to feel justified in saying, well, look, we've been doing performance and bonus-based contracts for most of your time here, and frankly, you've made out very well because you are that good and you have been hitting your targets time and time and time again. And oh, look, this season you've been better than you've ever been. So clearly, you're going to hit your targets again this season. So why now do you want to change the parameters and make it so you get this regardless of whether you're hitting your targets? Because honestly, if that's what you're saying, then to me, that sounds like you don't think you're going to hit those targets when you get to that age. You want to be paid anyway. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an agent, but that's exactly what I'd be saying.
Yeah. No, all absolutely fair. I think some of the toxicity as well, I mentioned toxicity around Trent. There's a sort of a ramping up of toxicity generally, I think, online. And it's really fucking weird, lads. Like, let me remind you again that we are 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League with a game in hand. Let me remind you again that we have not been beaten in the Champions League and that on Wednesday we are playing a semi-final of the League Cup. What are you on about? Why am I sitting there with the login details for Spirits of Shankly getting all kinds of shit about, why aren't you putting something out? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you saying something about contract? Like, lads, Mo Salah is the highest paid player in the history of Liverpool Football Club and is currently on about the same wages as Vinicius Jr. Yeah. He is not a poor man and he is not being financially diddled by the ownership.
He can buy and sell all of us.
No, what annoys me about some of it, like I'm the same as any Liverpool fan in that I wish we had not got here, and it looks shit that we have got here, and it's been a distraction all season, and now it's really starting to ramp up. And of course, I'd love it if all three signed, but to suggest that it's simple is bollocks. And to suggest, you don't want to write back on 350 grand a week, do you? Because what precedent does that send out to everyone else you ever sign, exactly, and the whole of your squad that are already here? Like Liverpool, someone in the comments before saying it does me head in this about finances with the 7th richest club in the world. Yeah, 7th. There you go. And who do we tend to compete with when we're at the top of the league or when we're at the, going deep into the Champions League?
Number one, number two.
Clubs with more money. So we have to make every penny count, and it's fair enough that we do. And the whole thing about the toxicity still about the owners and the mad shit that people put on the internet about it on a daily basis. Lads, crack on and enjoy what we've got. What are you on about? We're going to win the league in all likelihood. We should be shouting from the rooftops about watching a great football side. And on a daily basis, you're abusing other Liverpool fans. Seriously.
And the whole idea of, this is going to become a distraction. It's like, well, only if you let it become a distraction. Obviously, we are talking about it on this show because it's something that everyone is talking about, and it would almost be weird to completely ignore it out of hand. But if you come up to any of us in the street or in a pub or whatever, and you ask us, do we want to talk about this or do we want to talk about the team? We're going to pick the team 10 times out of 10 because let's reiterate it. We are top of the league by 6 points. And this is the other thing that I can't quite get my head around. Yes, the results happened in 2 different times, so you can look at it and say, well, Liverpool are going to be more disappointed. Arsenal are feeling worse than us right now because we dropped points and they didn't capitalise. That's one more week gone by where they couldn't catch us up. So it's actually worse for them than it is for us. Like, we would have killed to be in this position
Exactly.
at any point in the last 30 years and maybe even before.
And Liverpool are 9-2 on to win the league as things stand. Arsenal are 9-2, and Man City are 25-1, and Chelsea are 50-1, and Forest are 100-1, and Man United are 1,000-1.
So I bet they're better. That Man United have got better odds to get relegated than to win the league, and let's all just celebrate that for a minute, shall we? By the way, those Man City odds, like, the first thing that came to mind is like, I bet Rob Goodman's put a sneaky 5 on City to win the league.
100%. 100%. No, Tom asks, are you talking about Anfield agenda? I don't watch that tit, so no. That's that done. But with all of this as well, you know, the sort of moving parts around the thing, and you know, like the context. I very rarely see that when people are absolutely losing the shit about it. So not ideal world, obviously, to be where we are. But why are we here? Well, let's have a think, shall we? Like Klopp left mid-season. He announced a bombshell that he's getting off.
Yeah,
and he's like, he was the man in charge of everything. Do you know what I mean? He was the godhead at the club. He was like, you know, the second coming of Bill Shankly. All of that kind of stuff. And so he announced he's going. These deals haven't been done then. And so I would take a wild guess that agents of these players say, hang on.
Yeah.
Should we see how this goes?
Yes.
And then they get slot, and probably like lots of the rest of us, they still go, yeah, fire no manager, yeah. Hang on, see how this goes. And that so there's one reason why it's rolled to now. Then are there any other reasons? Well, let's have a think. The people who actually negotiated the deals got off.
Yes.
We got some standing fella who, yeah.
So this is the one area where I feel like the club, because all the other ones, they were kind of like on the back foot about it. So they didn't know Julian Ward was going to say he's leaving. They didn't know that Klopp was going to say he was leaving. But in between those two things, they were the ones who allowed Klopp to bring in his mate to do the job. And then what happened, his whole priority was doing things that Jurgen wanted him to do. And whether or not he knew then, because the way that some of these Red Bull people have been talking, it feels like he may have already known that he was thinking about leaving at that point, and whether that had any influence on him thinking, well, these things aren't necessarily a priority because I'm not really going to be able to get involved with them because I'm getting off. So that's the area there where the club should have been like, no, we're going to get someone to do this properly, and we are still going to prioritise these things here. But by the same token, we don't know whether or not they tried to do that and the players were still like, because this is the other thing, right? Even if he hadn't mentioned it, the players are in and around Jurgen. They see what he was like day in, day out, week in, week out. We all saw how much he suffered throughout COVID for a variety of reasons. And you wouldn't be surprised if the players privately were thinking, yeah, he's not going to be here much longer. I don't know how much longer he's going to be here. You would not be surprised if that wasn't a regular conversation amongst the players. So subconsciously or otherwise, they might already been thinking, well, we're going to hang on before we sign our next deal to work out, see what the future is like. Like, that might have already begun. And so the only way to have not got Liverpool in this situation would have been to sign them up. Like, well, Salah only signed his new deal, 2 years ago anyway. So unless you're going to give him a 4-year deal at that point, which they wouldn't have done because he was already 30, then you're always going to be, to a certain extent, close to getting into this situation. The problem is, though, because it's the three of them.
Yeah.
And it was the same before when Salah signed his last deal, when it was Mane, Salah and Firmino. And everyone was saying, well, how have you got into the situation with all three of them at the same time? And we're here again.
Yeah.
that's the frustrating part.
Well, look, that's their raison d'etre. They want to play hardball over it, don't they? And they always have done. You remember when they first come in, they said, they couldn't believe some of the contracts that were in place, like Glenn Johnson or whatever, and and they were like, we're gonna do something about that, and then they have done.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think that they're the best owners in the world or anything like that. Far from. They've made loads of mistakes. They've had to U-turn, backtrack, and all the rest of it from them. European Super League was an absolute shit show, etc. and so on. But equally, we have won the league, we have won the Champions League, we have won cups, we have, we've done up Anfield, we've got a new training ground, etc., etc. So the idea, like again, I just sort of don't get why, like, we as in the people who support this club and go to the ground, etc. Or to be honest, I think it's more online, to be honest, because I can have a conversation. I've seen Dan Nicholson tweet something along these lines saying, I can have a conversation with 500 people around the match, and none of them will be like this about it. But you go home and you turn Twitter on, and it's absolutely everywhere, every time, every day, and it's like, and like I say, getting on the back of an organisation like Spirit of Shankly, which is volunteers fighting for the good of fans, and you're calling us all kinds, and you like there was one lad, like he's properly weird. I've seen him a few times, and he came up with all this stuff like like a disgusting organisation or something, and all this kind. And I just replied like, get a grip, and he comes back with like yank cocksuckers, and I'm like, are you a grown man?
Yeah,
because your pictures appears to suggest so. Like
I always feel like how like people get randomly selected for jury duty. Like, what I would like to see is people just get randomly selected and have to go to a courtroom in front of like judges and all other people and just read out their own tweets and just be like, why did you say this? Do you stand by this? Or is this just a ridiculous thing that you said when you were having a little bit of a mood and you wanted to vent, and now that's out there in the world for the rest of the time? Because people used to say mad shit before Twitter, but no one would remember it. Because you'd say it in a pub and it would go off into the ether and people would take the piss out of you, and then the next day it would be like it's never happened. But the internet puts that shit out there forever. So you kind of have to be held more responsible for your words, because the people you're speaking about might eventually see that stuff. So it's just, I think people need to remember that this is supposed to be fun.
Yep. And also, like, it's quite nice when we all actually support. Yeah. So I really hope that, people booing and abusing a player who's actually in the first team and contributing to us, being top of the league, etc., doesn't happen next time. I mean, we're away obviously in midweek in the League Cup, Tottenham, and then it's Accrington, Stanley Uwedai on Saturday.
In brackets, who are they?
So I don't think he'll play. I don't think he'll play against Accrington.
No.
I imagine it's going to be a much changed side. So what are we looking at then? So we've got, after that, we've got Forest away, Brentford away. So next home game is Lille, 21st of January, Champions League. So by then, I'm hoping that, the sting's gone out of this a little bit, that he's played and played well, and that we can just sort of leave it, lads, a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's an argument to say that maybe yesterday was everybody kind of getting out of their system a little bit, and maybe now that once you've seen how bad it has got, that everyone can kind of take a few steps back and be a bit more like, okay, well, this is counterproductive, isn't it? Like, and again, I just think that we all need to remember what is the best way for Liverpool to win things. And it's not making our own players feel bad. It's not selling one of our best players because he's had a bad game. It's everyone getting behind the team and helping them to do better. Now, that's not to absolve him from all of what he didn't do in the game yesterday. I think we need to reiterate that, because for some people, nuance doesn't exist. And the moment you say anything positive about someone who everyone's hating, then suddenly you're an apologist and you're forgetting all of the horrible things. Like, no. Things can be good and bad at the same time. And yes, that was a bad thing, the way he played. But no, I'm not willing to just get rid of him because of it. I don't think that the rest of his teammates wants to get rid of him. I think Virgil could have clocked him because he was that angry with him, but he would have got into the dressing room and he'd have probably tore a strip off him.
Yeah. And
then they got into training today and he'd have put his arm around him and said, hey, tomorrow's another day. Let's go and mash Spurs. And that's the way it should be for all of us.
Yeah. Dodgy leather that he wore to train in the other day, though. I've got a question for you, Mo, because we've got to do a little bit of this in the subscriber show. I think people will know, I'm sure, that Mo is in the press box, goes to the press conferences, and is busy. He's with Arne Slot. I wonder, does anyone ever ask, formally, informally, whatever, can we speak to Richard Hughes? Because we see every press conference, and we know that, like, we know Vinny isn't a dope. Vinny's a nice fella, yes. Sky Sports fella, lovely bloke. He is told by his desk to ask a question, and he has got no choice but to go and ask that question, even if he knows he's going to get, everyone groaning at him, the manager rolling his eyes at him, and all the rest of it. So, but the questions Vinny, as I feel like I'm picking on Vinny, but the questions about the contracts that come every time, and he never answers it.
No.
Does anyone ever say, "Well, can we speak to the sporting director?" Like,
well,
he spoke once, hasn't he?
Yeah, and
that's it.
That was it. And it was almost like he knew what was coming, because he was like, "I'm going to get this out of the way, and then I'm going to disappear into the shadows."
Yeah.
So I've had conversations with people in the room about this subject, about wondering whether or not it's time for him to come out and make his manager's life a bit easier. Because I think the one thing about the situation that will always be to Slot's credit is that he's always recognised what you just said, in as much as that Vinny's there, got a job to do. Vinny would much rather not piss him off.
I know.
I think, like, genuinely, I think most of us want to get into a situation where there's a healthy respect on both sides. And we saw, obviously, 9 years in, but towards the end of Jurgen's time, there were people who were almost kind of scared to look him in the eye because they felt like they were going to get the death stare, because he was just sick of it.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of reasons for that. There were plenty of times where something that he said got twisted out of context and used as a headline, etc., etc. And none of that's happened with Arne Slot. I don't think it will, touch wood. But Slot could quite easily have just be like, you know what, I've had enough of this. Why are we still dancing this dance? And at that point, like you say, it would be good if Richard Hughes, the man who actually can answer these questions, could come in. But here's the kicker. I don't think if we got Richard Hughes in front of a microphone,
he's not going to answer that.
He'd just say the same thing.
It'd be nice to just see him, wouldn't it? See how he's getting on. But yeah, he's not going to tell you that. And that's a line of mine that I've said for years. That, like, people act as though, the clubs have to tell you anything. They don't.
No.
Really, like, I remember a journalist really losing his shit with Rafa, and so he'd, like, said in a pre-match press conference that someone was unavailable, and then he played them, and then it was like, this journalist was like, go blowing his top, saying, well, you said this, and blah, 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 and I was thinking, what are you doing, mate? Like, you're a football journalist talking to a football manager. It's not a court of law.
No.
And Rafa just went, yeah, things change. And I was like, yeah, fair, Rafa. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
it was wild. I mean, on that question thing as well, there was one like, dead funny. It was when we were in, I think it was when we were in Hong Kong, and all the Coutinho stuff was breaking and all that.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the question, and that was the contract of then. You know what I mean? The contract talk of then. It got asked every single press conference, and so Klopp sits down this day out in Hong Kong, and I was at that press conference. And he sits down and like Matt McCann says, like, we won't be answering questions about, Coutinho or whatever. And then they start the press conference and the first question was about Coutinho. And it was just... and Klopp's face was an absolute picture. He was just like, what's the score here? Like, we just said that I'm not going to talk about it. So guess what? I'm not going to talk about it. Because I asked him something about like, because I thought, I don't get in many of these, so I'll try and ask him something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was just asking him about like, like if it's a pre-season match, what you say to the players, like, because you don't want them to get injured for the start of the season, but you do want them to get fit. If you tell them to not go full pelt, how would you do that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And he was like, where he gets the big smile and all that, and it was because he was like, yes,
a football question. Yeah, honestly, this is the one thing that I've learned. Well, not the one thing I've learned. One of the things I've learned more than anything, like, managers love talking about football. Ask them about football, you'll have their attention for ages. And give them something interesting. Like, there is so much about a press conference that is the same every single time. And they are prepared for those parts, and they know that has to happen, and they give the stock answers. But they want to have something new, because they do them all the bloody time. So they want it to be a little bit more interesting. They want to be able to come in and think, oh, well, I wasn't predicting that he was going to ask me that. So now I actually have to think about something. And then I can give you the benefit of my knowledge as a football coach. Because they also want everyone to know that they know lots of stuff about football. So just make it as easy for them to do what they want to do, and you'll get something interesting out of it. But yeah, like, there are times when, so even the contract stuff, like, if you go on the YouTube video of every press conference that question has been asked, you'll see loads of people saying, God, why have they asked this question again? And then you see loads of people saying, well, why have they not answered the question? Blah, blah, blah. So you can see there are people who want them to answer this question, but what they want is they want the answer that's never going to come.
Exactly.
So
and also, even more so when the fella's just the coach. You know what I mean? Like, so he doesn't negotiate the freaking
They gave
contract.
him that title for a reason.
Exactly.
And this is it.
To go back to the sort of, like the behaviour of the few, if you like, around Trent at the match as well. Slot was asked about this before the game. He was asked whether, what he thought the response of the fans would be. And he said, I don't think I need to tell our fans how to react, because they've always been so supportive and have been supporting their team and their players for so many years. I fully trust that they will react in the right manner, because we've been constantly together in the half year that I've been here. And I think that it's something that stands out here for so many years. The team and the fans have been together. That's created so many special games and so many special things for this club. They don't need me to tell them how they should react. Well, yeah, so if you were one of them that prompted, Slot to turn round at the game, it was so bad, and bollock people in the stands. Well, you've let the Slot fella down.
Yeah,
well in.
I think that's such a great, the way he phrased it is so perfect, because it's like the whole idea of him telling people what to do doesn't go down very well at all. So he's not doing that. He's just basically kind of reverse psychology in it and saying, look, well, you guys are great. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about you guys, because you're great. You're just going to do everything you always do. And that's exactly all I expect. So when this happens and it's not what he expects, it's just a bit like, oh, like you say, well, you've let me down. You've let yourselves down. And I don't know whether or not people will have the self-awareness to look at themselves and think, well, yeah, that was probably a little bit stupid. But again, I keep going back to the thing is that all of us in that ground who are there supporting Liverpool want Liverpool to win football matches. So you have to think, what is the best way of helping Liverpool win football matches? Is it shouting at that fella, or is it singing "Come on, Liverpool"?
And they do hear it. Like, they do hear it. Like, some of them come out with this nonsense about, I block it out, I don't know it, I don't reckon it. I when I was still part of the rap, we interviewed Robbo, and we did a piece, or we did an interview around, it was like a bit of a G-up. It was like, let's get the stadium like rocking, let's get the atmosphere going. And I said to him, do you hear what the fans are saying to you when you're playing? And he went, yeah, I'm a fullback. I'm right by them.
Yeah.
So they do hear
Yeah.
it. Of course they hear it.
And another thing that comes up a lot, and I quite want to address, is that the whole idea of, well, because we pay our money, we're allowed to voice our views. It's like, look, yeah, you do pay your money, and yes, it is a lot of money, but that still doesn't mean that you get to throw abuse around. Like that's not how it works. Like, if you don't like, if you go to watch a play and you don't like a play, do you stand up and start abusing the guys in front of you? No. You either passively aggressively talk about it on Twitter or you leave. Like, both of those things are options. Like, come on. I don't know. I just get exasperated.
Do you think Tranmere Rovers let themselves down? or more so their Twitter admin?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised to see them take advantage of an opportunity to.
I didn't mind it, to be fair.
No, and also like Roy Keane brought them into the conversation, so it's not like they kind of gig their way in with no.
For those that didn't see this, so Roy Keane said, Trent looks like he'll get a contract at Tranmere Rovers the way he'd been playing. And then Tranmere Rovers official Twitter tweeted, Trent to Tranmere, Roy. Nah, we're all right, thanks.
But they did it as a way of supporting the fellow who's currently playing at right back. So it wasn't just saying, oh, he's shit, we don't want him. It's like, we're supporting our own player. They're supporting their own player. A novel idea.
Yeah. I'll tell you what summed up the whole day for me, really. Not only did we have to do the big dance about is it on or off, and then, the terrible conditions, snow, etc., blah, 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 blah. But just the general off day that Liverpool had, that Robbo pass to Gravenberch when we were still trying to chase the win right at the end, and it just went out, and it was only like a short pass, and it was just like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, you do that, mate, sound.
So, I don't know if you see that, there's a meme of Jerry Seinfeld where he's just like, right, that's it, I'm out. Or he just kind of has to, like, he's in the cinema or something, and he's just like, yep, this is enough for me, I'm out. And that's kind of mentally how I felt like. I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't happening. And it's a shame because it would have been amazing to win that game in the last. That was what I was thinking for most of the end of that game. Once it went to 2-2, I was just thinking, how good would it be for them to feel like they've got away with it and then still go and beat them? Like, how good would it be to beat Man United in the 95th?
That's what I was thinking. That was exactly the thoughts that was going through my head, because I was thinking, you know what? If we end up winning this like roller coaster and they get nothing from it, that's better.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's great, and obviously we didn't quite manage it. But their players, when Maguire missed, you know what I mean. They're like on the floor, and you know what I mean. And like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
small section.
And I'm also going to enjoy it next week when they're playing. I think they're playing Arsenal, aren't they?
Don't know what their fixtures are.
I know they've got Arsenal in the cup. I don't know who they're playing in the league, but I was at the post match with their manager as well, and far from him being happy, he was livid, like absolutely livid, because he was like, well, why can you do this for this game and you can't do this for it? I've been saying the same thing week in, week out, and you've been ignoring me, and then suddenly you come to Anfield and you feel like you want to be Superman. Well, listen, you guys need to be Superman every week. And I don't think they're capable of being Superman every week. As if they were, they wouldn't be 14th in the table. And so for all of you out there who've got friends or family or in-laws who are United fans who've been a little bit gloaty over the last 24 hours, just show them that league table, will you?
Yeah, because it's glorious. And just show them title odds as well. Because whatever happens, United aren't winning already. I mean, Liverpool's record then still reads 123, drawn 4 and lost 1 this season. Was this, though, a game where for the first time you maybe question one or two of the manager's decisions?
Yeah. So obviously we mentioned the whole Trent could have come off earlier thing. But again, that's kind of mitigated by the fact that, yeah, he probably was thinking about, I'm trying to minimise this as much as possible. But there's a lot of talk of the fact that maybe when we went 2-1, they could have introduced Endo. Would it have been a little bit of shoring it up a bit? But again, I kind of understand that to an extent, because when we went 2-1, United looked like they had lost a bit of their heads. So maybe you're thinking, go for the kill, get the 3-1 here and now. But that was the first game where we've looked poor in the first half, and then we've looked poor in the second half as well. Like there was no, and I mean, maybe this proves how remarkable it's been, how often he's been able to get to completely change the tune and work out exactly what the problem was. But the problems that they were causing us in the first half were still being caused in the second half. And yeah, maybe maybe he's not actually a magician, and sometimes it's a little bit harder. Yeah. But there were a couple of things where, so Bruno Fernandes in particular, who had by far his best game against Liverpool, like by far, he was very good. And you say what you like about him. Yesterday, he was a very good player, but he was causing all kinds of murder because he was basically making it so Konate had to keep an eye on him, Trent had to keep an eye on him, and Gravenberch had to keep an eye on him. And sometimes all at the same time, which meant that his teammates were free. And then he was just using that space. And that's the kind of tactical thing that you would expect them to have noticed and to be like, okay, well, we're either going to put someone else on him or we're going to throw another player in there and give him something to deal with. Or like, so one of the other things was Diogo Dalot, who again had a very good game, very influential. He was the one who was basically making Trent look silly most of the time. He was yellow carded after 23 minutes. 23 minutes. And how much after that point did we run at him, make him make another tackle that could possibly get him a yellow card? Not enough. Hardly at all. Like, these are the kind of things where I'm kind of like, yeah, someone probably should have said something. Like, because obviously Salah, he is always going to want to run at his man, but throw someone else down there as well. Like, put two players in his face. So then he's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, make it hard. We didn't make it hard for them enough.
I thought we looked really predictable, and you know we just kept going to Mo, and you could see Gakpo the other side like getting really frustrated and throwing his hands up a little bit because it was like, hang on lads. And then when we do finally get the ball to him, he chops away, sends the lit to the shops. He's probably still knocking around in Anfield with a basket of guns,
making snow angels down by the cup.
Just went sliding past and buried it.
Yeah,
and it was like I was saying to me lads, I was like, why aren't we getting Gakpo into the game at all? I was like, you switch it up, surely. You try different sides, and I just thought like we looked quite predictable.
Yeah,
and it was like you're just playing that ball every time, lads.
And like there were times this season where Liverpool tried to be more measured, more kind of not so much safe, but sure with their passes. Tried to kind of not necessarily be as gung ho and as like 100 miles an hour as we were under Klopp, and that's worked well for us at times. I think today or yesterday was one of those times where maybe we needed to turn up the volume a little bit and go a little bit quicker, because they were in like a line of 5 and then a line of 4, and we weren't really moving them left and right. They were just able to sit there and be like, okay, well, whenever the ball comes into us, one of us is going to run out and smash them. And like, they couldn't really do that against Newcastle. Like, they looked incapable of doing that. They were just a half a step slower against Newcastle. But maybe they were just saving all their energy for us, because they certainly weren't half a step slower against us. And you're right. There comes a point where, okay, well, this isn't working. We need to kind of do something different. And to his credit, because we've given him lots of shit over the course of this season, I thought when Darwin came on, he did give them a little bit more problems. He did kind of throw his weight around in the way that he does, but also he kind of created a bit more space for others. And I thought Jota as well, when he came in with his direct running, he kind of caused them a little bit of problems. Would they have been able to, either of them been able to do that from the start? Maybe Jota, probably less so Darwin. Maybe going into a tiring United defence was the perfect place for him. But yeah, I liked what we saw a lot of the time from having Diaz as the centre forward, but it also proves to me, that game yesterday, that it's not his natural game. He is still learning how to play that position, and now teams have seen him do it enough to be able to say, okay, well, this is what he's good at, this is what he's not good at, so we can target him and make him, when he goes out there, make sure that he can't find a pass in there, and then suddenly he's out of the game and he's over there. And we've got strikers who have been strikers from when they were this big, so we should probably play one of those.
Yeah. Well, there's 7 more games in January to come, so loads of stuff going on, loads of midweek and weekend action, loads to get stuck into. We'll be back here next week talking once again about the Reds. We're going to carry on now in the subscriber show. We got some bits and bobs that were a bit lighter, a bit different, and not just football, but we haven't finished the football, so we'll continue a bit of footy chat. We'll do a bit of the other chat. We'll talk about Mo, we'll talk about being a DJ and, you know, mad people coming up pissed.
A lot of them being your friends, by the way.
Yeah. Very much so. But I think we'll talk a little bit about Slot as well. Just want to sort of remind ourselves that he's boss, because he is boss. He last lost an away game in 2023, by the way. Just saying. And his totals for 2024, obviously some Feyenoord, some Liverpool, are played 49, won 39, drawn 9, lost 1.
In real.
He's all right, isn't he? And there was a great piece by Jonathan Northcroft, so I'll give that a little reference over there. So yeah, come and join us. You can sign up for the Patreon for free. You can have a trial of it, see if you like it. If you do like it, sign up then and keep going. You can do so for as little as £4 a month to get that extra show. It is now me and Mo. We hope you've enjoyed the first show of us doing it, basically. Obviously, Mo's come in and being a sub before, but he is now legit the late challenge, along with me. So yeah.
Am I going to get one of those TLC mugs of my own now?
Yeah, I'll see if I've got one for you, mate. Yeah. Johnny Clark just threw a £5 in as well there towards the end. Thank you, Johnny. And yeah, come over. And look, if you don't want to sign up for the Patreon, or you don't want any more shows and things like that, but you do want to support the show, you can throw in the super chats like people have been doing who are watching live on YouTube. Some people will watch later. Some people will listen to this as a podcast. If you want to just sort of chip in and help us pay for the studio and all the other kind of stuff, you can do so by going to Buy Me a Coffee. So if you do Buy Me a Coffee, the late challenge, you'll find our page there, and you can throw in whatever you like. I won't spend it on coffee because I don't drink the stuff. Makes your breath stink and it's horrible. Yeah.
Now you tell me.
So yeah, hopefully see you over on the Patreon, and if not, see you here next week on the free show. Nice one, and up the Reds.